Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I've got a few stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start, you guys are probably used to me mentioning my 3D printing business dangly3d.com, where you can go and pick up your very own Carmen Chameleon Karma Stories channel mascot. It's a cute little chameleon and it holds a cookie, which you can have if you subscribe. But beyond that, I've also started pen turning in my garage, something that I did about 5 years ago and really enjoyed and decided to get back into it again. So if you'd like to check out the custom hand-turned pens I'm doing in resin and in wood, check out my website, CanadianRob.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. Our first story today comes to us from Grimbark Footy Towsand. I guess I didn't fit in. About 4 years back, I got hired as an IT consultant with a job description that said I would spend half my time answering phones and half my time modernizing the processes and internal communication. I've worked first-line phone support before, and it's actually an amazing way of learning how it all works, what users actually need, what processes actually work, and so that was fine by me. A week into the job, I pull my manager aside and tell him there are some security issues that need fixing ASAP. But I get told that I should shut the F up until I've been there 6 months and know what I'm talking about. I also tell him that the department has a lot of single points of failure, which is things like only one person knowing how to fix all our old systems from the late 80s. Same answer, shut the F up. I mean, okay, I'll shut the F up, but these are extremely obvious and extremely dangerous issues. Like, everyone has the same admin password, and it hadn't been changed for 10 plus years. Disgruntled former employees have this password, and 4 months later, in which I only answered phones despite the job description, we found out the hard way that Russian ransomware hackers also had that password. So the entire company shuts down. All our stores are down, HQ is frantic, and we're running ragged trying to get anything resembling a working system up. Very expensive experts are hired, and I fail at concealing a smirk when they tell us that the very things I pointed out 4 months earlier were used in the attack, and their suggested solutions were pretty much exactly what I recommended back then. A few very stressful months later, the company is barely functional again. I get called in and fired because the manager doesn't feel like I fit in. I immediately crash with the stress of the last few months catching up to me, and so I'm unable to finish all my projects. The manager assigns my projects to other incredibly stressed out people who then also crash and or leave the company, including the absurdly important single point of failure, that one IT dude that knows how all the old systems work, and the entire department collapses. At this point, I know it's already cost the company about $20 million in lost revenue and consultant fees. But then, roughly 2 years later, I'm called up by a recruiter who is asking if I'm willing to travel and get a bunch of international stores running after a ransomware attack. It's not this company, is it? Yes, is that a problem? Oh boy, yes, but it's not my problem, and you can tell manager that. Then I hung up, did a bit of online searching, and found out that not following my suggestions had, at that point, cost the company about 10 years worth of net profit. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called BetterSoftware2722. It says, wow, first rule of management, pay attention to your direct reports and act on what you hear. Another commenter down below called NarrowEmployee3418 said, sounds like you might have been fired so the manager wasn't. If he realized you were right all along, and all could have been avoided if he had listened to you on your first week, his head would have rolled if his superiors had found out too. You were dangerous to have around at that point. OP responded and said, absolutely, except I'm like 98% sure the CEO was the one to click whatever link gave them access in the first place, as he went from, we must find out who caused this to, it's not important who did it, we must look forward, from one day to the next. CEO caused it, and the manager could have prevented most, if not all of it. So I think they just agreed to clean the house of anyone who could embarrass them later. I think one of the most important aspects of a manager is listening skills, listening to your people, listening to what they're actually saying, and then acting on what they're saying if you need to. If OP's manager had listened to what they were saying, and maybe even looked into their background a little bit to make sure they knew what they were saying, this whole situation could have been avoided. This story comes to us from This Is Driving Me Batty. Use your personal phones as work equipment? Okay, but when it dies, I have no other backup, so don't expect me to finish the job. Some years ago, I did a brief stint as a mail carrier with the Postal Service. Every Sunday, people were mandated to come in on rotation to do Amazon deliveries, and the rotation was usually split in 2 groups, 1-to-3 ratio, with 1 person from the tenured carriers and 3 people from the contract carriers per branch, with 3 to 4 branches reporting to our location as we were the sorting hub. This particular Sunday, we had the following complications. All 4 people from my branch were new contract carriers, including myself, because it was Labor Day weekend, and the tenured folks could not be mandated in. This was only my second Sunday delivery, and I hadn't really been trained. Our postmaster was subbing in at an out-of-state location, so we had someone filling in for her. The sub-postmaster was out this day, so we had one of the lower supervisors filling in for him. A sub for the sub. This person had just come back from a 2-month suspension for threatening to hurt somebody in writing. Our scanners weren't working that day, which also meant the auto-generated routes weren't populating on them. Because it was Sunday, they were dynamic routes that changed every week based on what packages we had and where they were going. We had to go by printed routes with no directions on them. When we brought it up to the sub-supervisor that the scanner GPS wasn't working, she told us to just use your phones. We were like, what? No, absolutely not. It's BS to expect us to use our personal devices as work equipment and not get compensated for it, especially for those of us who don't have unlimited data plans. She insisted, so we called our union reps from our respective branches, who told us we were well within our rights to pack up and go home, but that we'd not get paid for the day. But if we stayed and couldn't finish, we'd get paid the full day plus any overtime. 3 people walked out and went home, and I don't blame them. But it did mean the rest of us had to pick up their slack. I stayed because I couldn't afford to lose the pay. I did warn this supervisor that as a young, femme-presenting person, I didn't feel comfortable going without any sort of communications, so as soon as my phone died, I'd be coming back and going home, regardless of how many packages I still had left. She brushed me off, but off I went. Sure enough, my phone died around 3 p.m. I messaged her when I had 1% left and told her I was on my way back. She frantically tried reaching out to me to tell me she figured out the GPS and was sending another carrier out to meet me to show me how to do it on my scanner. I ignored them. When I returned, she tried to write me up for insubordination, refusal to deliver. I refused to sign the write-up and wrote my own undeliverable report detailing everything that had happened, including the instructions she gave and what our union rep told us. She refused to sign that in retaliation. I took her pen and wrote, "Manager refused to sign acknowledgement" in all caps, and called the rep right back in front of her to let them know I'd be filing a grievance the next day, and went to go unload my truck. As I was unloading, I saw other carriers also coming back and having the same conversation with her. Apparently, they'd heard me tell her in the morning what I planned to do and decided to do the same. The sub-postmaster and the district postmaster both had to come in to finish delivering the packages. I quit not long after this, but I heard from the other carriers she was fired by the end of the year. I now have a newfound understanding for the BS the mail carriers put up with, and have since started leaving snacks and waters for my mail carriers. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Avid Learner. It says, "Oh man, I really get where you're coming from. That's just insane to put workers through that. I mean, what if someone needed their phone for an emergency? Shouldn't bosses have a plan B for situations like this?" I would love to get into a situation like this, where they ask me to use my own phone for a work purpose. I'd pull out my old Motorola flip phone, hand it to them and say, "Hey, could you show me where the GPS is on this? I'm just not sure." I can only imagine the look the boss would give, especially if they're a younger person, because it would be like they're seeing a dinosaur. This story comes to us from Jessica Sergey. Use all your PTO before December 31st or lose it? Alright, don't mind if I do, even if the project burns. This happened a couple of years ago at my old job, a pretty demanding corporate gig where we were always juggling tight deadlines, constant emails, and way too many meetings that could have been Slack messages. Around early November, HR sent out one of those all-staff emails with a bright red banner and urgent tone. It read something like, "Reminder, all unused PTO must be taken before December 31st. We will not be allowing rollovers this year. Please schedule your remaining days immediately or risk losing them. No exceptions, no flexibility, no consideration for project timelines." Now, I wasn't one to take a ton of time off during the year, mostly because every time I tried, something urgent would come up and I'd get guilted into postponing. So by November, I had 10 full days of paid time off just sitting there. And according to HR's big red warning, I had about 6 weeks to use them. Naturally, I did what any burnt out, underappreciated employee would do. I opened the calendar and booked myself off from December 18th to December 31st. 2 full weeks right before the new year, smack in the middle of the most chaotic time in our project cycle. A week later, my manager, let's call him Rob, came to me in a mild panic. "Hey, I saw your PTO request. I was hoping we could shift that a little. December's going to be a critical time for project, and we really need all hands on deck." Yeah, I get that, but HR sent that PTO deadline. If I don't use those days, I lose them, and I've already worked through enough vacations this year. He looked uncomfortable, but couldn't argue with the logic. I even forwarded him the HR email with the subject line, "Using my days as required." He escalated it to HR, of course. HR's reply, "We understand it may be inconvenient, but our PTO policy is final. Managers are responsible for planning around employee availability." That reply felt like Christmas came early. So I prepped my team as best I could, left detailed notes, and on December 18th, I logged out stress-free. While they were scrambling to hit deadlines, dealing with last-minute client requests, and working late, I was sipping hot chocolate, watching Netflix, and actually enjoying my holiday season for once. When I came back in January, the project had been delivered barely. The team was exhausted, mistakes had been made, and the post-mortem meeting was basically 45 minutes of finger-pointing. But no one dared say a word to me. After all, I was just following HR's rules. Moral of the story, if a company insists you follow policy to the letter, don't feel bad when you do, even if it means watching the ship catch fire from your cozy vacation cabin. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called DLC741. It says, "Who came up with those idiotic deadlines? All of our projects assume that at least half of the staff would take off for holidays and plan for a slowdown from Thanksgiving through New Year's." Another commenter down below called Cerulean is Fancy Blue said, "You missed the real moral. Take your PTO. The project will survive, unless you're an officer or stakeholder and expect a substantial reward for the effort. Don't surrender your personal life for the job." This right here is so true. There's always going to be another project, and they're always going to expect you to meet the deadlines. But you always need to remember to put yourself first. Your personal life is important, and your work-home life balance is very important, so make sure you take that PTO. It's there for a reason, and it's protected. Alright, I think we'll end this one here. Make sure to check out my 2 websites I mentioned at the beginning, dangly3d.com for your very own Carmen Chameleon, Karma Stories channel mascot, and CanadianRob.com if you want one of my exceptionally beautiful hand-turned pens. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to follow us on your podcasting platform of choice, and if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.